Sometimes it feels like the universe has terrible timing. You're exhausted, confused, trying to hold your life together with invisible tape. And then someone appears. It might be a stranger who sits next to you on a train, a colleague who suddenly becomes central to your day, an old friend who reemerges after years of silence, and something in you whispers, "This is not random." Carl Jung had a word for these moments: synchronicity. Not just coincidence, but meaningful coincidence. When an outer event lines up with an inner state so precisely that it feels like reality itself is answering you. Most people interpret this as fate, or the universe shipping two people together. But Jung saw something much deeper. Your unconscious mind and the outer world moving in a hidden pattern, like two dancers who never met, but follow the same music. Think about it. You've been wrestling silently with a question. Why do I always end up in the same kind of relationship? Why can't I say no? Why do I feel invisible? Days later, someone walks into your life and embodies that exact problem. They ignore you, control you, adore you, abandon you, overwhelm you, but always in a way that hits a nerve you already had. To Jung, this isn't just bad luck or good luck. It's a sign that your inner story has become so loud that the outer world starts to echo it back to you. Synchronicity isn't the universe playing puppet master with people's lives. It's more like a mirror suddenly appearing in front of you at the exact moment you were about to forget who you are. You meet someone, and your attention sharpens. Why them? You've seen thousands of faces today, but this one cuts through the noise. Maybe they have a familiar sadness in their eyes. Maybe their confidence looks like the version of you that you've never dared to be. Maybe their chaos feels like the home you promised never to return to, but somehow always do. When the universe sends someone, it almost never comes with a label saying, "This person will heal you. Please attach permanently." Often it's the opposite. The person arrives wrapped in confusion, attraction, resistance, or fear. Your body reacts before your mind understands. A knot in the stomach, a weight in the chest, a strange sense of déjà vu. Jung would say, pay attention here. Because where there is emotional charge, there is meaning. We like to think we choose our connections logically. We don't. We are pulled by patterns, by what is unfinished inside us. And the unconscious is economical. It doesn't send us essays, it sends us people. People who carry the qualities we have repressed. People who repeat the dynamics we never resolved. People who, simply by being who they are, push us toward a decision we've been avoiding for years. From the outside, it looks like chance. From the inside, it's a conversation between your soul and your life. This is Jung's real message. Before you ask, why did the universe send me this person? You have to ask, what in me called them in? Because when the timing is uncanny, when the encounter feels scripted, when their presence hits you like a symbol, there is usually a forgotten part of you standing behind the curtain, quietly pulling the strings. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the universe doesn't send you the right person. Sometimes it sends you the right mirror. In the next part, we'll go deeper into this mirror. How someone can enter your life not as your soulmate, but as the sharpest reflection of who you really are and who you're afraid to become. We are taught to read intensity as destiny. If your heart races, if you can't stop thinking about them, if every conversation feels charged with electricity, the story is simple. This must be my person. The universe finally sent the one. But Jung would quietly raise an eyebrow and ask a different question. What part of you is being reflected back? In Jungian psychology, we don't just see other people as they are. We see them through the lens of our projections, the hidden qualities, fears, desires, and wounds that we can't yet own in ourselves. And the more emotionally charged the connection, the stronger the projection tends to be. That's why some people feel strangely familiar, almost like you've known them for lifetimes. You haven't. You've known the inner pattern they activate. You meet someone, and suddenly you feel alive in a way you haven't felt for years. You talk for hours. You imagine your future together after a single week. You tell your friends, I don't know why, but it feels meant to be. What if what feels meant to be is actually meant to be seen? Maybe they are wildly confident, expressive, unapologetic. You, on the other hand, have spent years shrinking, apologizing, editing yourself to be acceptable. So you fall in love, not only with them, but with the version of you that awakens in their presence. Or maybe the opposite happens. They are emotionally unavailable, distant, unable to choose you fully. You feel small, anxious, constantly trying to prove your worth. It hurts in a way that feels old. Because it is old. They are mirroring the first place in your life where love came mixed with coldness, inconsistency, or rejection. In both cases, the universe didn't send a reward or a punishment. It sent a mirror. Jung believed that these intense encounters are often orchestrated by the unconscious to push us toward individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are. We don't grow by reading about ourselves. We grow when another human being touches the exact place we've refused to touch. That's why soulmate chemistry can sometimes feel indistinguishable from trauma chemistry. Both feel strong. Both feel fated. But they lead you in very different directions. One expands you. The other imprisons you in an old story. So how do you tell when someone is a mirror rather than a long-term match? A mirror connection often comes with a sense of urgency, like you must secure them immediately or you'll lose something vital. A pattern of emotional highs and lows that feels addictive. A weird familiarity with their dysfunctions, as if you've dated this person before, in a different body. A loss of your center. You abandon your values, your boundaries, your routines just to keep them close. It's not that mirror people are bad or wrong. Many of them are doing their best with their own wounds. But their role in your story is different from the fantasy you attach to them. They come to expose, not necessarily to stay. The danger is that we confuse the lesson with the destination. We cling to the person instead of listening to the message they bring. We chase them, negotiate ourselves away, beg the universe to make it work. When the deeper invitation is, see yourself, reclaim yourself, choose differently. When the universe sends a mirror, the question is not, how do I keep this person? But, what truth about myself becomes impossible to ignore when they are here? Because sometimes the most loving role that a mirror person plays in your life is this. They arrive fast, wake you up brutally, and leave you with a choice. Repeat the same pattern with someone else, or finally break it. In the next part, we'll go into the most uncomfortable category of all. The people who don't just mirror you, they trigger your deepest wounds, and unknowingly become catalysts for the transformation you've avoided for years. If in the last part we saw that some people arrive as mirrors, there is a more intense version of this. The people who don't just reflect you, they hit the nerve. With a mirror person, you recognize patterns, projections, old stories. With a trigger person, your whole system reacts before you can even think. Your heart races, your chest tightens, your mind spins with what did I do wrong? All from a single message, a changed tone, a brief silence. Jung had a name for the zones they touch, complexes. A complex is not just a bad memory. It's a living cluster of emotion, body sensation, belief, and story wrapped around a core wound, abandonment, rejection, humiliation, failure, not being enough. On the surface, your life might look stable. You function, you work, you show up. You tell yourself, I've moved on. I'm over it. And then the universe sends someone who, without any manual, presses exactly where it still hurts. They take hours to reply. They cancel plans last minute. They make a small, sharp comment that sounds strangely similar to something you heard in childhood. Objectively, it might not be a huge thing, but inside a storm starts. You're not just upset with this person in this moment. You are reliving every version of that same pain that came before. This is where we often get confused. We collapse the past and present into one. We say, people are always like this. I knew I'd be abandoned again. The universe keeps sending me the same cruelty. From a Jungian lens, it's not the universe torturing you. It's your unconscious saying, this wound is still organizing your life. You can't keep pretending it's gone. The person in front of you becomes a trigger, but also a messenger. Not a saint, not a villain, a human being whose behavior collides with your most sensitive inner material. If you don't see this, you get trapped in repetition. You either obsess over changing them, over-explaining, over-giving, overworking to earn their love, so you never have to feel this again. Or you cut them off instantly, promise yourself you're done with this type, and then later attract the same pattern in a different body. But something different happens when you pause and ask, why does this hurt this much? Where have I felt this before? How old does this feeling seem? Suddenly, the timeline separates. You realize that your panic when someone pulls away isn't just about them. It's tied to early experiences where distance meant danger, rejection, or emotional starvation. You see that your urge to fix, to please, to be perfect is the survival strategy of a younger you who learned that love had conditions. The trigger person didn't create these beliefs. They simply collided with them hard enough that you couldn't ignore them anymore. This is the moment Jung cared about, when the unconscious becomes conscious. The complex that used to control you from the shadows steps into the light. And what appears first is messy, anger, tears, obsession, overthinking, but underneath all of that there is information. Information about what you still believe about yourself. Information about where you still abandon yourself just to not be abandoned by someone else. Here's the crucial point. Seeing the pattern doesn't mean you must stay to learn the lesson. Growth is not measured by how much pain you endure. Sometimes the real act of transformation is to say, I see what this touches in me, and because I see it, I choose differently now. The external action might look simple, setting a boundary, stepping back, ending the connection. But internally, the movement is radical. You stop letting your oldest wound decide your present. That's the hidden gift of the ones who trigger you. They force a confrontation between who you were and who you're becoming. They make it impossible to keep building a life on top of the quiet belief that you are unworthy, invisible, or destined to be left. Someone has to press the button so you finally see where it is. So the next time a person activates a disproportionate reaction in you, instead of only asking, why are they doing this to me? You can also ask, what forgotten part of me is screaming right now? How can I show up for that part in a way no one ever did? Because that is where transformation begins, not when the trigger disappears, but when you become the one who no longer abandons yourself when it appears. In the next part, we'll move into discernment, how to recognize when someone is a temporary catalyst, a lesson, a turning point, rather than a lifelong companion, and why confusing those roles creates some of the deepest heartbreak for sensitive, self-aware people. One of the hardest things to accept is this. Not everyone who changes your life is meant to stay in it. Some people arrive like earthquakes. They shake everything, expose every crack in your foundation, turn your routines into rubble. You look at the chaos and think, if they had this much impact, surely they must be my forever. But in Jungian terms, impact doesn't always equal destiny. Sometimes it equals initiation. The unconscious often uses relationships as turning points. A person appears right at the edge of an old chapter and a new one. They don't come to walk every page with you. They come to make it impossible to keep reading the same story. The problem is that we confuse the intensity of the lesson with the length of the contract. So how do you know when the universe sent a catalyst, not a lifelong companion? Let's start here. A catalyst relationship often feels like being pulled by a tide stronger than your own legs. The speed, the depth, the emotional charge, everything escalates quickly. You barely know them, but you're already imagining the future. You override your own pace. You ignore the part of you that whispers, slow down. Observe. Listen. Jung would ask you to look underneath that speed. What's fueling it? Genuine resonance, or an old hunger finally being fed? Here are some subtle signs you might be dealing with a lesson connection. 1. Your self disappears around them. You find yourself editing your opinions, minimizing your needs, laughing at things that don't feel funny, just to keep harmony. Your routines fade. Your friendships go on hold. Your inner world orbits entirely around how they feel. A lifelong bond can be intense, yes, but it makes more room for you to exist, not less. A catalyst often forces you to see how quickly you abandon yourself for the dream of being chosen. 2. The relationship feels like a test you can fail. You live in constant evaluation mode. Did I say the right thing? Was I too much? Did I text too soon? Love becomes an exam. You're always trying to read their mood, decode their silences, perform the right version of yourself. This usually means the connection is pressing on a core belief. I am only lovable if I get everything right. The real invitation isn't to finally pass the test with this person. It's to drop the test entirely. 3. The patterns are old, even if the person is new. When you step back, you recognize the storyline. You've been here before. Different face, different name, same emotional script. You give more. They give less. You chase. They retreat. You hold the emotional weight of two people. The universe is not recycling this pattern to torture you. It's making the loop so obvious that you can no longer call it bad luck. It's asking you, will you finally choose another ending? 4. Your intuition feels split. Part of you feels magnetically drawn to them. You can't explain why. But another part of you feels heavy, uneasy, or quietly sad, even in the best moments. You might hear a small inner voice saying, "This isn't it. Something is off." And instead of listening, you call it fear, insecurity, or self-sabotage. Jung would say, sometimes your soul knows what your psychology hasn't caught up with yet. The conflict you feel inside is not always a sign to push through. Often, it's a sign to slow down and listen deeper. 5. The relationship teaches more than it gives. When you look at the connection honestly, you notice it has given you more insight than peace. You've learned about your boundaries, your attachment style, your wounds, your patterns. But when you imagine living this dynamic for years, your body says no. Catalyst people often leave you with a notebook full of lessons and a heart that knows it can't stay. The value they bring is real, but it's not necessarily meant to be permanent. Instead of forcing them into the forever category, you can say, "You were the turning point. You woke me up. You showed me what I couldn't see. And my growth from here is my responsibility." When you see it this way, walking away or redefining the relationship stops feeling like failure. It becomes an act of alignment. Jung's deeper message is not that we should label people as lessons and discard them coldly. It's that we must discern which relationships feed our becoming, and which ones were meant to ignite it, not contain it. Because if you insist on turning every catalyst into a lifelong contract, you end up dragging a chapter far beyond its natural ending. You imprison both of you in a story that was only meant to be a doorway. In the next part, we'll talk about what to actually do when you feel that the universe has sent someone significant, how to respond consciously, with curiosity, boundaries, and self-respect, so that whether they stay or go, you don't miss the real message that life is trying to deliver through them. By now, it's clear. Not every intense connection is meant to stay. Some are mirrors, some are triggers, some are catalysts. But when that familiar line appears in your mind, "The universe sent me this person," what do you actually do with that? Jung would invite you to shift the focus. Less on who are they to me, and more on who do I become around them. You don't need a perfect label for them. You need a clearer relationship with yourself. Think of it in 3 movements. Observe, integrate, decide. 1. Observe, stay curious, not enchanted. First, you watch. Instead of turning them into a soulmate or a villain, you treat the connection like data. You notice, do I expand or contract here? Jung would say, stay curious, not hypnotized. Curiosity keeps you awake. Fantasy makes you blind. 2. Integrate, face what they reveal in you. Then you ask, what do I admire in them that I've disowned in myself? What behavior of theirs slices into an old wound? What story about love or worth does this relationship keep repeating? This is where shadow work becomes real. The goal is not to decode them, but to understand your reactions. Integration means you let this awareness change something in how you treat you. You stop begging them to give what you refuse to give yourself. Respect, attention, care. 3. Decide, from self-respect, not fear. Only then comes the decision. What place will this person have in my life? You ask, do their actions support growth, or keep me stuck in an old loop? Sometimes the answer is to stay, but with clearer boundaries and a slower pace. Sometimes the answer is to step back, honor what this meant, and let the connection change or end. The point is, you stop acting like the universe is the only one choosing. You become a co-author. Because Jung's deeper message is this: the universe doesn't just send you people. It sends you chances to become more whole. If someone's presence supports that wholeness, there may be space for them. If their presence demands that you abandon yourself again, the sign might not be try harder. But let go, and this time, don't leave yourself behind. When you say, the universe sent me this person, you're not just talking about romance, fate, or some cosmic love story. You're saying something much deeper, even if you don't realize it. This encounter is changing how I see myself. Some people arrive as mirrors. They reflect back the strength, creativity, courage, and emotional depth you've been hiding. Around them, you catch a glimpse of who you could be if you stopped shrinking. Others arrive as triggers. They don't feel gentle or healing. They press straight into your oldest wounds, abandonment, rejection, invisibility, and your reaction feels too much, even to you. From a Jungian view, they are not a curse. They expose where your past is still running your present. And then there are the catalysts. They might not stay long, but their impact is undeniable. They enter at the exact moment your old life is cracking, and their presence forces a decision. Repeat the same pattern with a new face, or finally break the pattern and become someone new. Jung's real message is simple and uncomfortable. It's not ultimately about who the universe sent. It's about who you decide to become because they appeared. You can use these encounters to keep justifying your old story, keep chasing what hurts you, keep abandoning yourself to not lose someone, or you can use them as a pivot point, to see your patterns clearly, to take your shadow seriously, to choose self-respect over familiar pain. The universe may bring the symbol, but you decide the meaning it will have in your life. If this touched something inside you, don't let it turn into just another deep video. Right now, think of one person who felt sent by the universe. Not the fantasy, the reality. Ask yourself, and be brutally honest. What pattern did this person expose in me? Did I lose myself or find myself in that connection? If this was a mirror, what was it showing me about my worth, my boundaries, or my fear? Pause the video, grab your notes app or a journal, and write this sentence. The universe sent me someone who showed me that I. Finish that sentence. Then come back here and share your version in the comments. No names, just the insight. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read tonight. If this video helped you see your relationships through a new lens, don't just disappear. Like this video to tell the algorithm this kind of depth matters. Subscribe to Hidden Mind if you want more Jung, shadow work, and deep breakdowns of the patterns guiding your life. Turn on the notifications, so you don't miss the next time we decode what your psyche is really trying to say. The universe may send people into your story, but you are the one who decides what changes from this moment on. Don't just let this awareness pass. Do something with it, starting today.